Moving on from college football, moving on to the NFL, the pros. A lot of stuff happening this week. We'll just kind of go through as much as we can. Obviously, there's a lot of things happening with the Jimmy G injury, the Lamar injury, Baker stuff, bunch of things happening. But right now, we're going to start a new segment that we are going to call the 2-minute warning, where we just rattle off for 2 minutes as much stuff as we can think of to say about the NFL week, what happened, and let me bring up a timer, that way we don't look stupid. And 2 minutes counting and go. Let's go. Okay, looks like the Bills beat the Patriots this week. That was kind of a no-brainer. Von Miller is out for the season, though. Torn ACL, had that repaired. The Vikings. You can't see the timer, can you? Oh crap! Oh no! Oh, this is a disaster. Okay, no, it disappeared. Why did it disappear? Okay, can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, Vikings hold off Jets, keeping the Patriots one game away from the Jets in the wild card race. Lamar got hurt in the Ravens' tight win over Denver. We'll talk about more on that a little bit. Philly dominates the Titans, looking like the best team in the NFC without a question. Deshaun was carried in his winning return over the Texans. We'll talk a little bit more on that, whether Deshaun is washed or not. The Commanders and Giants, we talked about that last week. They tied in overtime, furthering the question, which team is better, which team will make the playoffs? We have no idea. We'll talk about it a little bit. Seattle pulls out a nail-biter against the Rams. Geno Smith still trying to make that playoff race. Obviously, Joe Burrow and the Bengals beating the Chiefs for the third straight time. Joe Burrow is still undefeated against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in his career. Talk a little bit on that, on how that factors into future playoff matchups. The Chargers fall to Las Vegas Raiders. They stay even with the Patriots in the hunt for that last wild card seed. One game behind the Jets. The Cowboys demolish the Colts in a statement victory, showing that maybe they're not who we thought they were. Are the Cowboys for real? Who knows? And then Tom Brady leads a fourth quarter comeback versus the Saints. How is this dude not dead? I have no idea. He should be retired by now. He's still winning games, coming back from behind in the fourth quarter. And that will do it for the 2-minute warning. All right. Now let's go more in depth on some things. We'll start with Lamar Jackson getting hurt in the Ravens' tight win over Denver. How does that affect the Ravens in that division going forward, with Joe Burrow and the Bengals obviously making a push for that division title and possibly knocking Lamar and the Ravens down to the wild card? Aaron?
I mean, you kind of saw it. They severely struggled on offense when Lamar was out of the game, and I mean, ultimately only scored 10 points. So when you have that crucial of a player, I mean, of all positions, this is the quarterback that goes down. I mean, it's kind of telling. You know, they're going to struggle I don't think it's a season-ending injury. I think he's just questionable for this upcoming week. So we'll see how they do. But fingers crossed that he comes back. You never want to see a good player like that and a good team like this kind of fall this late in the season.
Yeah. Anything to add, Siege?
No, I didn't really watch much NFL football this past week, so I don't really have a whole lot on. I'm not really up to date on what all happened. So
yeah,
y'all got this.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, so Lamar obviously got hurt. Yeah, I think you're right, Aaron. It's not a season-ending injury. He should be back in time for the playoffs at the least. I'm not sure how early he could return, but I do know he's due back before the playoffs at the latest. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that division race going forward. Obviously, Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Joe Bangle might as well be his name at this point. Joe Burrow and the Bengals have, they've gotten really hot recently. Winning that game against the Chiefs this last week was huge. So that division's obviously going to continue to tighten. And I think if Lamar misses more than 1 or 2 games, it could end up really costing them that division title this year. Seeing how bad they struggled without him against a really bad Denver not defense but Denver team. Only scoring one more point than Russell Wilson this year hasn't exactly been impressive. So, moving on from Lamar, let's talk a little Deshaun Watson. Came back first game since obviously 2020 or something like that with the Texans after all those allegations and stuff in the offseason and beforehand. He looked terrible. I'm just going to be honest with it. He looked absolutely atrocious out there. He had less than 200 passing yards. I don't even think he had a passing touchdown. I think he might have had a pick in there too. Couldn't tell you exactly what his stats were, but I know they weren't good. Which on that team, I guess you don't need to be when you got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the backfield, but definitely looked like a shell of his former self, and it wasn't close. Aaron, what did you think about what you saw from Deshaun this past week?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of what I expected. He was really rusty. He was pulling throws into the dirt early, and his decision making. He did have a pick late, but I mean, it's what you kind of expect. He hasn't seen real game action. I mean, he did play. I don't know how much. I think it was just a couple drives early on in preseason, but yeah, I mean, his first actual in-game action since 2020. Yeah, that's kind of what you expect. We'll see if he can get back in the gist of things and more to his old self, or if he's just kind of stuck this way. He didn't seem to have the mobility he used to have, which was a little worrying to me. He just kind of seemed like he was trying to be a little bit more of a pocket passer, and he didn't necessarily have the explosiveness he used to. So we'll see going forward.
Yeah, I think that'll be a really interesting thing to keep an eye on. Obviously, the Browns traded, I don't know about a lot for him, but they traded something for him, obviously. Completely gave up on Baker Mayfield.
$140 million is what they traded for him.
Yeah, they signed him to that extension. I forgot about that. But they also gave up on Baker Mayfield, who I will touch on a little bit later. Could end up biting him in the butt. We'll see. But anyways, on to the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo out for the season after breaking his foot, I believe it was. They have Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy back under center now. Obviously, I mean, I was expecting them to be in the Baker Mayfield race after he got waived by the Panthers. Obviously, there weren't more than one team in that race, so I was wrong. But yeah, what do you think that means for the Niners going forward? Obviously, they were looking like one of the stronger teams in the NFC. I think if Jimmy G hadn't gotten hurt this past week, I probably would pick them to make the Super Bowl out of the NFC. But now that happened, I don't know. I'm not so confident about that pick anymore. But to be fair, the Niners offense is also one you don't really necessarily need a stellar quarterback. So maybe they'd be able to get away with having a Brock Purdy back there. What do you think, Aaron? Do you think the Jimmy G injury kind of spells doom for the Niners? Do you think they're basically out of the race for the Super Bowl at this point, or do you think they can still overcome that injury and make a statement?
I mean, you're right. You don't need their defense is good enough. You don't need a stellar quarterback, but you do need a competent one. So we'll see how well he does the rest of the season. But I think the playoffs, the defense is like a step above, especially what you see in the regular season. I don't think they make a Super Bowl run personally. I think it's too much too fast.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets settled in, and I just think the defenses are just gonna throw stuff at him that he hasn't seen yet, and it's gonna be I think it could get ugly in a game.
Yeah. Same thing as Lamar with that one. I mean, you hate to see it happen because that team was kind of rolling at this point in the year. I'm not being, sarcastic or anything when I was saying I really probably would have picked them to come out of the NFC had Jimmy G not gotten hurt this week. But because of that injury, that definitely makes me rethink things and probably have Philly as coming out of that conference to face who I'd like to think is the Chiefs, but we'll see. in come Super Bowl time. But moving on to the Chiefs, they got beaten by the Bengals and Joe Burrow for the third straight time. Third time this calendar year, in fact, and the first time since losing that conference championship game against them this past playoff run. I guess my question coming out of this game is Pat Mahomes and Joe Burrow the Peyton Manning, Tom Brady rivalry, and then Josh Allen's maybe just the Ben Roethlisberger, and then maybe the Chargers got unlucky with their Phillip Rivers again with Justin Herbert? Or do you think it's a little too early to tell still who that next big quarterback rivalry is in the NFL? Because as far as I can tell, Joe Burrow seems to be the only one who can consistently beat Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen hasn't done it when it matters. Obviously, Herbert hasn't done it anytime ever, except for maybe a meaningless playoff or meaningless regular season game, I should say. So yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, it looks like Burrow and Mahomes are the next Manning-Brady rivalry, and then you got Herbert and Allen look out on the outside looking in, kind of like Ben Roethlisberger and Phillip Rivers were back in the day. What do you think about that, Aaron?
I actually disagree. I'd still think that it's Mahomes and Allen. That's the Brady-Manning matchup. The Chiefs, every time we've played the Bengals, have beat themselves. Just last game, it seemed like they were just playing zone defense, getting no pressure on Burrow the entire game. They just didn't want to tackle. They let the run game just bring it to them. And yeah, it's been frustrating to watch as a Chiefs fan, but it is what it is. And yeah, I mean the Mahomes, the Chiefs, Bills matchups, those have just been some all-time games, down to the wire. I mean, the 13 seconds left in a regulation last year in the playoffs, that was just an all-time game. So, I mean, I think it's still probably a little too early to say, but I would lean that the Mahomes-Allen matchup would be more like the Brady-Manning one.
Yeah. So, do you have anything to add to that? It doesn't really take much NFL knowledge to kind of put your
so the Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes thing, I think, is more of a mirror image to, not necessarily a mirror image, right? But more of a Manning Brady thing, and I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals, I mean, yeah, they beat the Chiefs 3 times, right? But at the same time, I don't think that's necessarily like a rivalry type deal that's going on between the quarterbacks. I think it's more so the fact that, like Aaron said, the Chiefs have made critical mistakes in critical situations to kind of beat themselves when they played the Bengals, at least in the past couple times. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, you could definitely say that for the championship game this past playoffs and this last week's loss. It was definitely the Chiefs losing it at the end, as far as more so than the Bengals winning it. This past week, obviously, highlighted by Travis Kelce's fumble towards the end, which was just brutal. But, I mean, that happens. So, I mean, I can't really take anything away from Travis Kelce. He's been amazing all year, trying to make things happen in those kind of situations. So I'm not too upset about it. I'd rather him try to make something happen than be conservative and just lay down. So, but no, I mean, just to kind of, I guess be the devil's advocate here, I personally actually do think it's more of a Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes thing than Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. I think Patrick Mahomes has proven that he's better than Josh Allen when it matters. He hasn't done that against Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's beat him in every single, at least, I'd say there's 2 games they've played the Chiefs have played the Bengals where they mattered, and that was the playoff game, obviously. And then last week, where they could, if they won, they would have stayed as the 1 seed in the AFC. And I think the fact that they lost again, maybe not necessarily due to Patrick Mahomes, but I think the fact that Joe Burrow was able to find a way to win just shows how much more competitive that rivalry is than maybe the Josh Allen Patrick Mahomes one, where it always seems to be, other than the 13 seconds in regulation, it always seems to be a blowout one way or the other. I feel like. At least 10 points, one way or the other, I'm pretty sure, other than that 13-second comeback. But moving on from the Patrick Mahomes topic, we could talk that to death. Tom Brady won't die. Why? Like, oh my gosh. Tom Brady, I thought he was dead in the water this past week, this Monday. Down to the Saints by, 13 points with less than 10...
6 minutes left.
6 minutes left? Okay, I knew it was less than 10.
Yeah.
6 minutes left in regulation, and still somehow comes back and wins that game. Is Tom Brady one of the scary... Like, are the Buccaneers one of the scariest teams in the NFC right now? Going to the... Like, they're probably going to make the playoffs because that division's so bad. We'll touch on the playoff picture a little bit later. But are the Buccaneers a bigger threat to the Super Bowl than people are giving them credit for now? Right now, Aaron?
No, absolutely not. Their offense has been sputtery at best all season. They've been heavily carried by their defense. And, I mean, they won against the Saints. I mean, it's not necessarily a super impressive win. They'll certainly need to figure out they're in the worst division in football right now.
Yeah, they are.
That's the reason they're gonna make the playoffs. If there's any other competent team in there, they'd be fighting for a wild card spot. So they're gonna need to figure something out on offense if they want any shot at the Super Bowl. But I mean, it's Tom Brady. You can't ever count him out. It's kind of what he's proven.
I know, and that's what's so frustrating. Go ahead, Siege.
Or they can just keep banking on the fact that all the running backs are going to go out of bounds 2 yards short of the first down in a critical situation with 6 minutes left up by 11 points or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Now, see, as a Patriots fan, whatever if you want to call yourself a Patriots fan, now you see what we were talking about, all these teams where Tom Brady just gets lucky. I don't know what it is. The dude's got some special aura around him where it's like no matter what happens, he will get a chance to win it when it matters. I don't understand. But yeah, that's been the way everybody else has felt his entire career. So it's kind of nice to see Patriots fans finally get to kind of, open their eyes a little bit and be like, oh crap, no, Brady does just somehow gets these opportunities.
Somehow he figures it out.
Yeah,
he finds a crack and he takes advantage of it. Apparently, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, the Saints went into prevent defense way too early. I mean, you held them to 3 points the entire game, and you start playing scared with 6 minutes left. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it was frustrating just as a Tom Brady hater, I guess you would call me, to see him come back and just. Still somehow 44 years old, he's still able to somehow do this. So I don't get it. But before I have a brain aneurysm, let's move on. Baker Mayfield was released by the Panthers this week. Obviously, I alluded to it earlier. I thought he was a perfect fit for the 49ers with that running game they have over there. The one time he's made the playoffs in his career, he had a great running game with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I know you and me, Aaron, have a little bit of a disagreement on that. I think it was either you or Joe. I can't remember who I talked to. Ends up signing with the Rams. Rams appear to be dead in the rights right now as far as the playoffs go. They're 3-9, so it's probably not a whole lot of way for them to make the playoffs going forward, especially in that division with the Niners being as good as they are. And then the Seahawks obviously still being a wild card team at this moment. But what do you think? Do you think Baker improves the Rams? Do you think he makes the Rams worse? Is Stafford even due back soon? I don't know. I know he was hurt for a while. I'm assuming that's why they signed Baker Mayfield is to start for the rest of the year while Matt Stafford's out. But I could be wrong, Aaron. Have you looked any more into that than I have? Maybe I don't know.
I know he was out with a concussion. He was out for concussion protocol against the Chiefs. And then I think he's out with now a neck injury.
Okay.
Is what they're saying. But to your first question, I don't think he makes the Rams better. I think Stafford is a much better quarterback than him. And the offense was struggling when they had Stafford at the home, so I don't see much changing for the Rams anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, at this point I've gotten to the point where I feel bad for Baker more than anything. At first it was kind of amusing to see his downfall from grace, but now it's just kind of getting sad. And so I just want the dude to succeed at this point. It feels bad. It feels wrong to pile on to him at this point. So I'm just praying that he somehow saves his NFL career, at least lasts as a backup or something, because I just feel bad for the dude at this point. Siege, you have anything to add to that section? Living in Oklahoma during Baker's Heisman run and all that stuff.
I don't have anything to add, really. I mean, Baker, to be honest, like, he didn't start out that bad as a quarterback in the NFL, and his teams over the past couple of years, it's just been like, dude, like, you're not cut out to be an NFL quarterback anymore. Like, it just didn't work out. And granted, he was with the Browns, and then he got moved to the Panthers this year, and it's like, the Panthers don't have anybody either. They don't have any weapons for him to give the ball to. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's him not having weapons, but I mean, he had some with the Browns, and I don't know. I just don't think he's cut out to be an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I think the main reason I wanted him to go to the 49ers was to pair up with Christian McCaffrey again, because that obviously worked so well in Carolina. But anyways, moving on from the Baker Mayfield thing, we'll talk some playoff picture. Just give you an update on what the playoff picture looks like. Maybe a couple of our inputs. We'll see what happens. But let me go ahead and pull up our playoff picture graphic real quick. Again, most unprofessional sports podcast in the world. There we go. All right. So, obviously the AFC. We got the Bills, Chiefs as the 2 seed, Ravens as the 3 seed as of now. We'll see what happens with that Lamar injury. Titans 4 seed, probably going to stay there because that division is terrible. And then the wild card right now, the Dolphins and Bengals have basically locked in those top 2 wild card seeds. They could alternate with the Bills or Ravens respectively. We'll see what happens. That last wild card in the AFC is really what's up for grabs, because the Jets have obviously had quarterback issues with Zach Wilson and Matt White. Not sure what the heck they're doing over there in New York, or New Jersey, I guess, is where they play technically. So, and then on the outside looking in, but really close, only one game back for both of these teams, the Patriots and the Chargers, right on the Jets' tails. Ready to move up whenever the Jets maybe make a misstep. Aaron, what do you think as far as that AFC picture is concerned? Do you think the Jets are probably gonna somehow hang on to that last seed, or do you think the Chargers or the Patriots could maybe sneak in?
I think if a team does sneak in, it'll be the Chargers, but I've got a feeling that the Jets just kind of hang on.
Yeah.
And if there is going to be a flip in anything, it'll be the Bengals and Ravens.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think the Bengals have a little bit tougher schedule left. They face the Bills and the Ravens, whereas the Ravens really only tough games against the Bengals. So
yeah, I thought I looked at their schedules recently, and I still think I had the Ravens coming out as the division winner. But yeah, I mean, the Chargers would be the team you'd like to see move up and take the Jets spot, just because of Justin Herbert and that offense. And even some of those defensive players over there with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. But, their safety, whose name escapes me right now.
For who?
For the Chargers. Matched up with Travis Kelce a lot during the season. I can't think of his name right now. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I think the Chargers, I would love the Chargers to sneak in, just because I think it would make it more exciting to see them face the Chiefs. Potentially, which would be really, really interesting. I honestly, as a Chiefs fan, wouldn't feel too confident going up against the Chargers in the first round. That would kind of scare me a little bit. But moving on to the NFC, obviously the Eagles remaining the top seed, Vikings pretty clear second. The Niners are still the 3 despite Jimmy G going out for the year. Other than the Seahawks, though, I don't see any other team catching them in that division. The Bucks, just because that division's so bad. I don't understand. They're technically a 4 seed. The Cowboys, who are way better than the Bucks, are a 5 seed. And the Giants and Seahawks round out the NFC, with the Commanders right on their tail. And then the only reason I put the Falcons there was to make it look a little bit more even. But to be fair, they do have a chance at that division over the Bucs if they win their next. I looked it up. If the Falcons beat the Saints, the Bucs play like. Hang on, let me pull up their schedule again. The Bucs play the Niners and the Bengals in their next 2 weeks. So, I don't see them winning both of those games. Maybe not even either of those games. If the Bucs lose both and the Falcons beat the Saints this next week before going on not this next week, the week after, because this next week's their bye. But if they beat the Saints, they'll be 6-8. If the Bucs lose their next 2 games, they'll be 6-8. I think the Falcons have a real shot at winning that division. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, that division, it's just kind of a toss-up at this point.
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from with the Bucs struggling towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
I think they kind of hold on, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, they also have, at least as of right now, they have the tiebreaker. Obviously, the Bucs and Falcons meet later on down the season. I think it's the last game of the year or something like that. But they do have the tiebreaker right now, so even if the Falcons were to catch them these next 2 weeks, the Bucs would still be the team that makes the playoffs. But that's still with a game between the two coming up. And then actually, I lied. I personally think that, if I can get this to work right.
Guys, he only talks when he clicks, so give him a second.
Baker Mayfield's going to lead the Rams into the hunt, baby. I think they've got a great opportunity to move up in the standings. Their schedule's not super strong going forward. Let me look at the Rams' schedule. Their schedule is not the strongest. I definitely think they could. Now, the only problem is they would have to win all of these games. They would have to win all 5 of these games. They would have to beat the Raiders. But I mean, it's the Raiders, it's the Packers, it's the Broncos, it's the Chargers, and then that Seahawks game would essentially decide who the last wild card is. I think the Rams have a great opportunity to go on a run here to finish the season and potentially sneak into the playoffs as a wild card on the backs of this man right here, Baker Mayfield. Let's go, baby. Go Sooners. No, I'm kidding. I hate the Sooners, but I really do. I think Baker Mayfield can lead the Rams to the playoffs. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it could happen. And I think that I think if it happens, I'm going to look like a genius, and everyone's going to have to eat my words. So, anyways, moving on from those delusional playoff picks by me.
Is that what we're doing now? We're just throwing out the most delusional possible thing we can in hopes that we look good one day, maybe, possibly.
Listen, no, I have some real like reasoning behind this. I looked at their schedule because I wasn't going to do this if their schedule was tough. But their schedule, they don't play a single team above 500 other than the Seahawks in the last game of the season.
Okay.
I think they could beat all of those teams and then go into a game with the Seahawks at the end of the year, with the winner of that being the last wild card team. Because I looked at the Seahawks record or schedule too. Let me go ahead and pull that up for the ones watching. I'll type in schedule first. Seahawks, most unprofessional podcast in sports. See, they have the Niners, the Chiefs, the Jets left. I mean, those are at least 2 tough games for sure with the Niners and the Chiefs that I don't see them winning both of those. They would only have to drop, at least one more game? Yeah, they would only have to drop one more game for the Rams to have a chance. So, and then if you go back to the Rams, they did lose to the Seahawks the first game. I don't know how the tiebreaker works, so that's the only problem. Is I don't know how the tiebreaker works if they both win one game against each other, but I think it really could come down to.
Go to common opponents, wouldn't it?
Does it come down to strength of opponents?
I don't think it's strength. I think it's common. It's like
common opponents, like record versus common opponents, which they're in the same division, so there's going to be a lot of those. But no, I think the Rams have a great opportunity to move up in the standings and fight for that last wild card with the Seahawks and the Commanders. When it comes down to it, I think the Falcons are going to fizzle out, or they're going to somehow sneak in as the division. But I don't think two teams come out of the NFC South. I do think two teams could come out of the NFC West, West though. So that's my reasoning behind the Rams being still in the hunt. They just got a chance. I just think they got a chance. I got a feeling.
You're sleeping on. I mean, what do the Raiders always do? They always suck at the beginning of the year and then find their legs late in the season and kind of make it interesting. And they're finding their stride now, especially with Josh Jacobs going off the way he is.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs. But Josh Jacobs has been hurt the last. I don't know if people who don't have him on his fantasy team know this. Josh Jacobs has been inactive in practice the last 2 weeks because of I think it's a foot injury. So he could end up being put on the shelf at any given moment.
Yeah, it's really hurting him. You rushed for what, 144 last game?
Ironically, yes, he has rushed He has had his two best games.
What, 200 like the game before?
No, here I'll pull it up on my fantasy, man. They said that. They basically said exactly what you're saying.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it hasn't showed yet.
Right,
as far as he's played, stats go.
It says.
I mean, the Chargers aren't a slouch either. Packers have kind of maybe looked like their former selves last game against the Bears.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I could see all four of the teams out of the NFC East making it somehow, which would be just insane to see every single team from one division making the playoffs. But that could happen with the Commanders. The Commanders could easily sneak in there. That tie with the Giants this past week makes that even more likely, honestly, which is crazy. But yeah, we may see four teams out of the NFC East, and that would be crazy considering they've been called the NFC least for the last 4 years. But anyway, let's move on from football. We've been talking way too much about NFL.